Sarah Chen adjusted her glasses and stared at the wall of monitors surrounding her desk at Joint Base Andrews. The glow from 12 different screens painted her face in shifting blues and greens as data streams flowed across each display. Around her, the Intelligence Support Activities Operations Center hummed with quiet intensity. 24 other analysts worked at similar stations, their fingers dancing across keyboards as they processed intelligence from every corner of the globe. At 28, Sarah had spent 6 years in this windowless room. She arrived each morning at 0430 hours, grabbed her standard black coffee from the break room, and settled into her ergonomic chair to begin another day of pattern recognition. Her colleagues called her the Analyst. Not because she was the only one, but because she had become the standard by which all others measured themselves. Sarah's specialty was signals intelligence, specifically intercepting and decoding communications from hostile forces. She could spot anomalies in radio traffic patterns that others missed completely. Her supervisors praised her thoroughness and attention to detail, but they saw her as exactly what her title suggested: an analyst. Someone who processed information, but never acted on it directly. The morning started like any other. Sarah logged into her secure workstation and began reviewing overnight intelligence reports from the Middle East. 3 different terrorist cells had increased their communication frequency, which suggested operational planning. She documented each pattern, cross-referenced them with previous activities, and prepared her assessment for the morning briefing. "Chen, you're up," called Major Williams from across the operations center. Sarah gathered her files and walked to the briefing room, where 20 military personnel waited around a polished conference table. Most were field operators, Special Forces soldiers, Delta Force members, and SEAL team leaders who would actually execute missions based on intelligence assessments. Sarah stood at the head of the table and activated the wall display. "Good morning. I've identified elevated communication patterns from 3 separate networks over the past 72 hours. She clicked through her slides, highlighting frequency increases and geographic clusters. Based on historical analysis, this pattern typically precedes operational activities within 14 days. Colonel Rodriguez, the task force commander, leaned forward. "What kind of operations are we looking at?" "Well, the communication patterns suggest coordinated attacks, likely targeting infrastructure or civilian populations. However, I need additional data points to determine specific targets or timing." Timeline for that analysis? Sarah checked her notes. 48 to 72 hours for preliminary assessment, assuming continued access to their communication networks. Colonel Rodriguez nodded and dismissed the briefing. Sarah returned to her workstation, already diving back into the data streams. This was her world: patterns, frequencies, algorithms, and probability matrices. She excelled at finding needles in haystacks, at connecting dots that others couldn't even see. What Sarah didn't know was that her reputation extended far beyond the operations center at Joint Base Andrews. Her analytical work had contributed to 17 successful missions over the past 2 years. 3 high-value target captures, 2 major weapons cache discoveries, and 12 disrupted attack plans could all trace their success back to her pattern recognition abilities. General Morrison, who commanded Special Operations Command Central, had been watching Sarah's career progression with interest. Her analytical accuracy rate exceeded 93%, well above the industry standard of 78%. More importantly, her assessments often revealed opportunities that other analysts missed entirely, but Sarah remained unaware of this attention. She focused on her work with laser-like precision, treating each intelligence puzzle as a personal challenge. Her desk was organized with military precision. 3 black pens in a small cup, a single notepad aligned with the edge of her monitor, and a small American flag positioned exactly 2 inches from her keyboard. The other analysts respected Sarah but found her intensity somewhat intimidating. She rarely participated in office, small talk, or after-work social events. Instead, she spent her evenings reading technical journals about communication technologies and studying foreign languages that might prove useful in her intelligence work. Sarah had mastered Arabic, Farsi, and Pashto through self-study. often staying late to practice language exercises on her personal laptop. She justified this dedication as professional development, but the truth was simpler. She loved the intellectual challenge of understanding how her adversaries communicated. Her personal life remained deliberately simple. Sarah lived in a small apartment 15 minutes from the base, decorated with minimal furniture and maximum functionality. Her refrigerator contained exactly what she needed for weekly meal preparation: chicken breast, brown rice, vegetables, and protein shakes for her morning workouts. Every Tuesday and Thursday, Sarah visited the base gymnasium at 0530 hours for strength training. She had developed her own routine, focused on functional fitness rather than appearance. Her logic was practical. If she ever needed to carry equipment or move quickly, she wanted her body to be prepared. This attention to physical conditioning seemed unusual for someone in her role, but Sarah approached fitness the same way she approached everything else, with methodical planning and consistent execution. She tracked her progress in a small notebook, recording weights, repetitions, and timing with the same precision she applied to intelligence analysis. Her colleagues noticed Sarah's dedication but didn't understand the deeper motivation behind it. Sarah had grown up as the daughter of a Marine Corps sergeant major who taught her that excellence required preparation in every aspect of life. Her father had passed away when she was 22, but his lessons about discipline and readiness remained central to her identity. The current assignment had started 18 months earlier when intelligence agencies detected increased activity from a network of extremist groups operating across 3 countries. Sarah's job was to monitor their communications and identify potential threats before they developed into operational plans. She had developed an almost supernatural ability to recognize subtle changes in communication patterns. When a network suddenly reduced radio traffic, most analysts assumed they had gone dormant. Sarah recognized that decreased communication often indicated the final stages of operational planning, when groups switched to more secure methods. Her analytical methods combined traditional intelligence techniques with innovative approaches she developed independently. Sarah created her own software tools to process large volumes of communication intercepts, searching for patterns that automated systems might overlook. The morning briefing had revealed another piece of a puzzle that Sarah had been working on for 3 weeks. The increased communication frequency wasn't random. It followed a specific pattern that matched pre-operational behavior from the same network 6 months earlier. Sarah returned to her workstation and began cross-referencing current intercepts with historical data. She pulled up communication logs from the previous operation and started mapping frequency changes, participant variations, and geographic distribution patterns. As she worked, Sarah noticed something that made her pause. The current pattern wasn't just similar to the previous operation. It was almost identical. Same communication frequency, same participants, even similar timing intervals between transmissions. This level of similarity was statistically improbable unless the network was deliberately repeating their previous operational pattern. Sarah's analytical mind immediately began exploring possibilities. Were they planning a similar attack? Had they found their previous communication methods effective? Or were they trying to mislead intelligence services? Sarah spent the next 4 hours building a comprehensive comparison between the current activity and the previous operation. She mapped every data point, created timeline analyses, and developed probability assessments for different scenarios. By afternoon, she had reached a disturbing conclusion. The network wasn't just planning another attack. They were planning a significantly larger operation that required coordination between multiple cells. The communication patterns suggested at least 5 separate groups working together, compared to the 2 groups involved in the previous operation. Sarah documented her findings and requested an urgent briefing with Colonel Rodriguez. Within an hour, she was standing in the briefing room again, this time with a much more serious expression. "Colonel, I need to update my morning assessment," Sarah began. "The communication patterns I identified aren't just indicating operational planning. They suggest a coordinated attack involving multiple cells across a wider geographic area." Colonel Rodriguez leaned back in his chair. "Walk me through your analysis." Sarah activated the wall display and showed her comparison charts. "The current pattern matches a previous operation from 6 months ago, but with significant amplification. Instead of 2 cells, we're seeing coordination between at least 5 groups. Instead of regional communications, we're detecting intercepts across 3 different countries. What's your confidence level on this assessment? Sarah had learned to be precise about probability estimates. 87% confidence that we're looking at a multi-cell coordinated operation. 73% confidence that it will occur within the next 2 weeks. And the target? Unknown. But the geographic distribution suggests either a high-profile symbolic target or multiple simultaneous attacks on infrastructure. Colonel Rodriguez studied the displays for several minutes before speaking. I want you to brief General Morrison on this tomorrow at 0800. Prepare a comprehensive presentation with all supporting data. Sarah felt a mixture of pride and nervousness. General Morrison rarely attended briefings for individual analysts. This meant her assessment had reached the highest levels of the command structure. That evening, Sarah stayed late to prepare her presentation. She reviewed every data point, double-checked her calculations, and created additional visualizations to support her conclusions. As she worked, other analysts gradually left for the day until she was alone in the operations center. The quiet gave Sarah time to think about the implications of her analysis. If she was correct, they were looking at a terrorist operation larger than anything the network had attempted previously. But if she was wrong, she would be recommending that significant military resources be allocated based on faulty intelligence. Sarah had always prided herself on accuracy, but she had never faced stakes this high. Her previous assessments had contributed to successful missions, but those had been relatively small operations with limited consequences for error. This was different. A coordinated attack involving multiple cells could result in significant casualties if not prevented. But a false alarm could waste resources that might be needed elsewhere. Sarah worked until midnight, reviewing her analysis from every possible angle. She tested alternative hypotheses, looked for potential flaws in her reasoning, and calculated confidence intervals for each conclusion. Finally satisfied with her preparation, Sarah drove home through empty streets. As she unlocked her apartment door, she realized tomorrow would likely change everything about her career, one way or another. Sarah set her alarm for 0400 hours and tried to sleep. But her mind continued processing the intelligence patterns, searching for any detail she might have missed. She had built her reputation on thoroughness and accuracy. Tomorrow, that reputation would face its greatest test. The next morning arrived with unusual clarity. Sarah completed her normal routine: black coffee, quick review of overnight intelligence reports, and final check of her presentation materials. At 0755 hours, she walked into the briefing room where General Morrison waited with Colonel Rodriguez and 3 other senior officers she didn't recognize. Analyst Chen, General Morrison said, I understand you've identified some concerning patterns. Please proceed with your briefing. Sarah activated the wall display and began presenting her analysis. She walked through the data methodically, explaining her reasoning and highlighting the key indicators that suggested a large-scale coordinated attack. As she spoke, Sarah noticed General Morrison taking detailed notes. The other officers asked technical questions about her analytical methods and the reliability of her data sources. Their questions were sharp and professional, testing her conclusions from multiple angles. After 45 minutes, Sarah concluded her presentation. General Morrison studied his notes for several minutes before looking up. Analyst Chen, your assessment is compelling and thorough. Based on your analysis, we're implementing heightened security protocols and deploying additional surveillance assets to monitor the regions you've identified. Sarah felt relief and pride. But General Morrison wasn't finished. I'm also recommending you for advanced training opportunities that will expand your role beyond pure analysis. Your pattern recognition abilities are exceptional, and we believe you have potential for field operations support. Sarah was stunned. Field operations support meant leaving the safety of the operations center and working directly with military units in active theaters. It was an opportunity she had never considered, and certainly never expected to receive. Thank you, sir. I'm honored by the opportunity. Report to Colonel Martinez next Monday morning. She'll brief you on the advanced training program and what it entails. As the briefing ended and the officers filed out, Sarah remained standing at the front of the room, processing what had just happened. Her analytical work had opened a door she never knew existed, leading toward opportunities she had never imagined pursuing. Colonel Rodriguez approached her as she gathered her materials. "Chen, you should know that General Morrison has been tracking your work for over a year. This recommendation isn't based on just one good briefing. It's recognition of consistent excellence." Sarah thanked him and returned to her workstation, but her mind was already racing toward the unknown possibilities that lay ahead. The analyst was about to become something completely different, and she had no idea how dramatically her life was about to change. Sarah arrived at Building 47 on Monday morning with a mixture of anticipation and uncertainty. The structure looked different from her familiar operations center. Newer, more secure, with additional layers of access control. She presented her identification to 3 separate security checkpoints before reaching Colonel Martinez's office. Colonel Elena Martinez was unlike any officer Sarah had worked with before. At 42, she carried herself with the confident bearing of someone who had spent equal time in combat zones and briefing rooms. Her office walls displayed certificates from advanced military schools, photographs from deployments in 4 different countries, and a collection of unit patches that told the story of a diverse career. "Analyst Chen, welcome to the Special Operations Support Activity," Colonel Martinez said, gesturing to a chair across from her desk. "General Morrison has briefed me on your analytical capabilities and your recent assessment. Impressive work. Thank you, ma'am. I'm honored to be here, though I'm not entirely sure what this program entails." Colonel Martinez smiled. "That's honest. Most people in your situation would pretend they knew exactly what they were getting into." She opened a thick folder on her desk. "The program you're entering is called Advanced Intelligence Operations. We take exceptional analysts and train them to operate directly with field units." Sarah leaned forward, intrigued. "What does that mean in practical terms?" "It means you'll learn to apply your analytical skills in real time, under pressure, in potentially dangerous environments. Instead of processing intelligence from a secure operations center, you'll gather and analyze information while embedded with special operations teams." The concept was both exciting and terrifying. Sarah had spent her entire career in climate-controlled rooms, surrounded by computers and communication equipment. The idea of working in active operational environments represented a complete departure from everything she knew. "The training program lasts 6 months," Colonel Martinez continued. "Physical conditioning, weapons training, field communications, survival skills, and advanced analytical techniques. You'll learn to operate independently or as part of small teams in hostile territory." Sarah's mind raced through the implications. "Will I still be doing intelligence analysis?" "Absolutely. But you'll be doing it forward deployed, often with incomplete information and time pressure that doesn't exist in traditional intelligence work. Your job will be to provide real-time analytical support to operational commanders who need answers immediately, not in 72 hours. Colonel Martinez handed Sarah a training schedule that covered the next 6 months in exhaustive detail. Physical training every morning at 0500 hours. Weapons instruction 3 afternoons per week. Field exercise weekends. And advanced analytical coursework that pushed far beyond her current capabilities. "I should mention that this program has a 47% completion rate," Colonel Martinez said. "It's designed to be challenging, because the operational environment you'll enter afterward is unforgiving. We need to know that you can perform under pressure before we put you in the field." Sarah studied the schedule, calculating the time commitment and physical demands. Everything about this opportunity excited her, even the parts that seemed intimidating. "When do I start?" "Tomorrow morning, 0500 hours, physical training facility. Wear appropriate workout clothing and bring a water bottle. Your instructor will be Sergeant First Class Rodriguez." Sarah spent the rest of Monday transitioning her analytical responsibilities to other team members. As she briefed her colleagues on ongoing intelligence assessments, several asked about her new assignment. Sarah realized she couldn't discuss many details due to security classifications. That evening, Sarah reviewed the training materials Colonel Martinez had provided. The physical fitness standards were significantly more demanding than her current routine. She would need to run longer distances, carry heavier loads, and meet marksmanship qualifications that most intelligence personnel never encountered. The analytical coursework looked equally challenging. Instead of processing pre-collected intelligence, she would learn to gather information directly from human sources, communication intercepts, and physical surveillance. The training emphasized speed and accuracy under stress, skills that Sarah had never needed in her previous role. Sarah woke at 0430 hours and arrived at the physical training facility 15 minutes early. The building was larger than she expected, containing multiple gymnasiums, an indoor track, climbing walls, and specialized training areas she couldn't immediately identify. Sergeant First Class Rodriguez was waiting with 4 other trainees. Sarah recognized none of them, but their bearing suggested military backgrounds different from her intelligence experience. They looked like people who had already spent time in operational environments. "Good morning," Rodriguez called out as Sarah joined the group. "Before we begin, introductions. I'm SFC Rodriguez, and I'll be responsible for your physical preparation over the next 6 months. Each of you brings different skills and experience to this program. My job is to ensure you can all meet the physical demands of forward-deployed intelligence operations." The other trainees introduced themselves. Captain Williams from Military Intelligence, Staff Sergeant Johnson from Signal Intelligence, Lieutenant Garcia from Counterintelligence, and Staff Sergeant Thompson from Psychological Operations. Sarah realized she was the only purely analytical specialist in the group. "Chen, you're coming from strategic analysis, correct?" Rodriguez asked. "Yes, Sergeant. 6 years processing signals, intelligence, and communications intercepts." "Outstanding. Your analytical skills are why you're here. But we need to build your physical capabilities to match your intellectual abilities. The program starts with baseline fitness assessments. For the next 2 hours, Sarah endured the most comprehensive physical evaluation of her life. Push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, distance running, obstacle course navigation, and load-bearing exercises that pushed her to her limits. By the end, she understood why the completion rate was less than 50%. "Chen," Rodriguez said as they completed the assessment, "your baseline fitness is better than most analysts. But you'll need significant improvement to meet operational standards. The good news is that you have the discipline and work ethic to get there." Sarah appreciated his direct feedback. She had always preferred honest assessment to false encouragement. Weapons training began that afternoon at an indoor range facility that was unlike anything Sarah had seen before. Master Sergeant Peterson, her instructor, introduced her to firearms she had only read about in intelligence reports. Instead of the basic pistol qualification most intelligence personnel received, Sarah would learn to operate multiple weapon systems under various conditions. "Chen, have you fired weapons before this assignment?" Peterson asked. "Basic pistol qualification annually, as required for my security clearance. Nothing beyond that. We'll start with fundamentals and work toward operational proficiency. You'll qualify on pistol, rifle, and designated marksman systems. The goal isn't to make you a sniper, it's to ensure you can protect yourself and contribute to team security if necessary." Sarah spent the first hour learning proper stance, grip, and sight alignment. Peterson was patient but demanding, correcting small errors that could become significant problems under stress. As she fired her first magazine, Sarah was surprised by how naturally the technical aspects came to her. "You have good hand-eye coordination and you follow instruction well," Peterson observed. "With consistent practice, you'll develop solid shooting skills." The afternoon concluded with classroom instruction on weapon maintenance and safety protocols. Sarah learned to disassemble, clean, and reassemble her assigned pistol until she could complete the process blindfolded. Evening brought advanced analytical coursework taught by Colonel Martinez herself. The classroom contained 6 other students from various military intelligence backgrounds, creating a learning environment more challenging than Sarah's previous training. Traditional intelligence analysis gives you time to review sources, cross-reference information, and develop detailed assessments, Colonel Martinez began. Forward-deployed analysis requires you to make accurate judgments quickly, often with incomplete information and under significant pressure. She presented the class with a scenario. A special operations team had captured communication equipment from an enemy position. They needed to know immediately whether the equipment contained information about planned attacks, friendly force positions, or other time-sensitive intelligence. You have 30 minutes to analyze this material and provide actionable intelligence to the unit commander, Martinez said, handing each student a folder of intercepted communications and technical specifications. Sarah opened her folder and immediately recognized the challenge. The communications were in Arabic, mixed with code words she didn't recognize immediately. The technical specifications were for equipment she wasn't familiar with. Under normal circumstances, she would spend hours researching the code words and consulting technical databases. Instead, she had 30 minutes to provide answers that could affect operational decisions. Sarah applied her analytical training systematically. She identified recurring words and phrases, looked for patterns in transmission timing, and made educated assessments about technical capabilities based on equipment specifications. When uncertain about specific details, she noted her confidence levels and suggested follow-up actions. 28 minutes later, Sarah completed her assessment. The communications indicated planned movement of personnel and equipment, but didn't contain specific information about attacks or friendly positions. The technical equipment was standard commercial radio gear, modified for encrypted communications. Colonel Martinez reviewed each student's assessment and provided feedback. Chen, your analysis was thorough and accurate. You correctly identified the key intelligence and appropriately noted areas of uncertainty. Most importantly, your assessment would give an operational commander the information needed to make tactical decisions. Sarah felt pride in her performance, but also recognized how much more difficult this type of analysis would be in an actual operational environment. The classroom was quiet, comfortable, and free from distractions. Real field conditions would include noise, time pressure, and potential danger that could significantly impact analytical accuracy. The first week established a routine that pushed Sarah beyond anything she had previously experienced. Morning physical training at 0500 hours, weapons instruction in the afternoon, and analytical coursework in the evening. By Friday, she was exhausted but already noticing improvements in her physical conditioning and shooting accuracy. Weekend brought her first field exercise. The training area was located 2 hours from the base, in terrain that resembled operational environments where she might eventually deploy. Sarah and the other trainees would spend 48 hours practicing skills under simulated field conditions. This exercise will combine everything you've learned this week, SFC Rodriguez explained as they arrived at the training area. You'll navigate to predetermined locations, establish communication with base, collect intelligence information, and provide analytical assessments while maintaining operational security. Sarah had never attempted anything like this before. Her previous training had been classroom-based or conducted in controlled environments. This exercise would test her ability to apply new skills while dealing with physical discomfort, sleep deprivation, and simulated stress. The exercise began at 2,200 hours Friday night. Sarah and Lieutenant Garcia were assigned to work as a two-person team, navigating to 3 separate locations over the next 36 hours. Each location contained intelligence materials they needed to collect and analyze before moving to the next objective. Sarah had practiced land navigation during the week, but doing it at night with a heavy pack was significantly more challenging. She and Garcia took turns leading navigation legs, cross-checking their route planning, and ensuring they maintained proper security procedures. At the first location, they found a cache containing documents in 3 different languages, communication equipment, and photographs of potential targets. Sarah and Garcia had to analyze the materials quickly, determine their significance, and report their findings via radio to the exercise controllers. Sarah applied her analytical training to process the documents systematically. The languages were Arabic, English, and what appeared to be local dialect she couldn't read completely. The communication equipment was more sophisticated than she expected, suggesting the simulated enemy had significant technical capabilities. Working by flashlight with minimal illumination, Sarah identified key information from the documents and equipment. The materials suggested coordination between different groups and planning for operations in urban environments. She and Garcia compiled their assessment and transmitted it to the exercise controllers within the required time limit. Good analysis under difficult conditions, Garcia commented as they prepared to move to the next objective. You stayed focused despite the environmental challenges. Sarah appreciated the feedback. She had been concerned about her ability to maintain analytical accuracy while dealing with physical discomfort and time pressure. The exercise was proving that she could adapt her skills to operational conditions. The second location required a more complex approach. Instead of simply finding cached materials, Sarah and Garcia had to conduct surveillance on a simulated enemy position and gather intelligence through observation. They established a concealed position and spent 4 hours watching activities at a mock compound. Sarah applied her pattern recognition abilities to analyze the movements and activities they observed. She documented personnel numbers, equipment types, security procedures, and communication patterns. When combined with timing observations and behavioral analysis, the information painted a picture of the simulated enemy's capabilities and intentions. By Sunday afternoon, Sarah had completed her first operational field exercise. She was tired, dirty, and sore from carrying equipment over rough terrain for 36 hours. But she had successfully applied her analytical skills in conditions that closely resembled actual deployment environments. Chen, SFC Rodriguez said during the after-action review, "You adapted well to field conditions. Your analytical accuracy remained high despite the physical and environmental challenges. That's exactly what we need to see." Sarah felt a sense of accomplishment that went beyond her previous professional achievements. For the first time, she had proven that her intellectual capabilities could translate into practical operational skills. The following weeks brought increasingly complex training scenarios. Sarah learned to establish and operate communication systems, conduct source meetings with simulated human intelligence assets, and provide real-time analytical support during dynamic tactical situations. Each exercise built on previous skills while introducing new challenges. Sarah found herself adapting to environments and situations she had never imagined encountering. More importantly, she discovered that she enjoyed the immediate applicability of operational intelligence work. By the end of the second month, Sarah had developed capabilities that extended far beyond her original analytical training. She could operate independently in field environments, maintain analytical accuracy under stress, and communicate effectively with operational personnel who needed immediate answers to complex questions. Colonel Martinez called Sarah into her office for a mid-program evaluation. "Chen, your progress has been exceptional. You're exceeding performance standards in every area and showing strong adaptation to operational requirements." "Thank you, ma'am. The training is challenging but incredibly rewarding. I want to discuss your career trajectory after you complete this program. General Morrison has been following your progress, and there are opportunities for you to support high-priority missions immediately upon graduation." Sarah leaned forward with interest. "What kind of missions?" "The terrorist network you identified 3 months ago is still active. Recent intelligence suggests they're accelerating their operational timeline. We may need forward-deployed analytical support to track their activities and predict their next moves." The possibility of applying her new skills to the same network she had been tracking analytically was both exciting and sobering. Sarah realized her training was preparing her for exactly this type of challenge. When would deployment occur? Potentially within 6 weeks of program completion. The situation is developing rapidly, and traditional intelligence methods aren't providing the real-time analysis needed for tactical response. Sarah understood the implications. Her transformation from desk analyst to operational intelligence specialist was preparing her to face the same enemies she had previously studied from the safety of an operations center. As she left Colonel Martinez's office, Sarah reflected on how dramatically her life had changed over the past 2 months. The analyst was becoming someone completely different, someone capable of operating in environments she had never experienced and supporting missions she had never imagined joining. The next 4 months of training would determine whether she could complete this transformation successfully and apply her unique analytical abilities in the most challenging operational environment possible. Sarah stood at the edge of the 40-foot tower, looking down at the rope descent that marked the final challenge of her training program. 6 months of intensive preparation had led to this moment. The culmination exercise that would determine whether she graduated or returned to her desk at the intelligence center. The morning air was crisp as she checked her equipment one final time. Rappelling harness secure. Gloves properly positioned. rope threaded through the descender correctly. Below her, Master Sergeant Peterson watched from the landing zone, ready to evaluate her performance on this last technical skill. "Chen, you've got this," called Captain Williams from the platform behind her. Over the past 6 months, the 5 trainees had developed strong bonds forged through shared challenges and mutual support. Williams had become something like an older brother, always offering encouragement during the most difficult training phases. Sarah had never imagined she would develop close friendships with people from such different military backgrounds. Staff Sergeant Johnson's expertise in electronic warfare had complemented her signals intelligence knowledge perfectly. Lieutenant Garcia's counterintelligence experience had taught her to think about security from completely new angles. Staff Sergeant Thompson's psychological operations background had shown her how to analyze human behavior patterns she had never considered. Most surprisingly, she had discovered leadership abilities she didn't know she possessed. During complex field exercises, the other trainees increasingly looked to her for analytical guidance and tactical decision-making. Her pattern recognition skills proved invaluable for route planning, threat assessment, and resource allocation under pressure. "Descending now," Sarah called out, stepping backward over the edge of the tower. The first few steps were always the most challenging, requiring complete trust in equipment and technique. As she controlled her descent speed and maintained proper body position, Sarah reflected on how much had changed since that first day of physical training. Her body had adapted remarkably to the demands of operational conditioning. She could now run 8 miles in full equipment, complete obstacle courses that had seemed impossible 6 months earlier, and carry loads that would have crushed her at the beginning of training. More importantly, she had learned to maintain analytical accuracy while dealing with physical stress and environmental challenges. Sarah touched down smoothly in the landing zone, immediately disconnecting her equipment and moving to the designated rally point. Peterson nodded approvingly as she completed the technical requirements with precision. "Outstanding execution, Chen. Report to Colonel Martinez at 1,400 hours for your final evaluation." The final evaluation represented more than just completion of a training program. Sarah understood that it would determine her next assignment and whether she would have the opportunity to apply her new capabilities in actual operational environments. She spent the lunch hour reviewing her performance portfolio, documentation of every training exercise, skill assessment, and leadership evaluation from the past 6 months. The numbers told the story of consistent improvement and exceptional final performance ratings. At 1,400 hours, Sarah knocked on Colonel Martinez's office door. When she entered, she found General Morrison seated beside Colonel Martinez, reviewing a thick file that she assumed contained her training records. "Analyst Chen," General Morrison said, looking up from the file. "Congratulations on completing the Advanced Intelligence Operations Program. Your instructors report exceptional performance in all areas." "Thank you, sir. The training was challenging but incredibly valuable." Colonel Martinez opened the file and began reading specific evaluations. Physical fitness exceeded all standards. Weapons proficiency, qualified expert on all systems. Field operations, consistently demonstrated leadership and analytical excellence under pressure. Communication skills, able to provide clear, actionable intelligence assessments to operational commanders in real-time environments. Sarah felt pride in these accomplishments, but she was more interested in what would come next. General Morrison leaned forward. "Chen, we have an immediate operational requirement that matches your unique qualifications perfectly. The terrorist network you identified 8 months ago has accelerated their activities significantly. Traditional intelligence collection is providing limited real-time insight into their current plans." Sarah's attention focused completely. This was the opportunity she had been training for. "We need forward-deployed analytical support to track their movements and predict their operational intentions. The assignment would place you with a Joint Special Operations Command task force operating in a classified location. Your job would be to provide real-time intelligence analysis directly to tactical commanders." The implications were both exciting and sobering. Sarah would be applying her analytical skills in an active operational theater, working directly with the same type of special operations personnel she had trained alongside for 6 months. "What's the mission timeline?" Sarah asked. Deployment in 72 hours. Mission duration estimated at 90 days, potentially longer depending on operational developments. You would be embedded with a 12-person special operations team led by Major Davidson. General Morrison paused to let the information sink in. Chen, I want to be clear about what this assignment entails. You'll be operating in a hostile environment where intelligence gathering involves significant personal risk. The analytical work you'll be doing could directly impact life-and-death tactical decisions. Sarah had spent 6 months preparing for exactly this type of challenge. Her training had been designed to prepare her for high-stress environments where her analytical abilities would be critical to mission success. Sir, I'm ready for this assignment. The training has prepared me to operate effectively under these conditions. Colonel Martinez smiled. We hoped you would feel that way. Your deployment briefing begins tomorrow morning at 0800 hours. You'll receive detailed information about the operational environment, threat assessment, and mission parameters. General Morrison stood and extended his hand. Chen, 8 months ago you were one of our best desk analysts. Tomorrow you become something completely new. A forward-deployed intelligence specialist capable of operating independently in hostile territory. It's a remarkable transformation. As Sarah left the meeting, she realized her life was about to change more dramatically than anything she had experienced during training. The controlled environment of military bases and training facilities was about to be replaced by operational reality in a foreign country where mistakes could have permanent consequences. That evening, Sarah completed final preparations for deployment. She packed her personal equipment according to the detailed checklist provided by Colonel Martinez, ensuring everything met operational requirements while staying within weight limitations. Her apartment seemed strange as she prepared to leave it for 3 months. 6 months earlier, this space had represented security and routine. Now it felt constraining, too removed from the operational challenges that had become her new focus. Sarah called her sister in California to provide general information about her upcoming assignment. Security requirements prevented her from discussing specific details, but she wanted family members to know she would be traveling for an extended period. Sarah, you sound different, her sister observed during their conversation. More confident. Somehow, this new training has been good for you. Sarah realized her sister was right. The past 6 months had built capabilities and confidence she never knew she could develop. More than physical training or technical skills, the program had shown her that she could adapt and excel in environments completely outside her previous experience. The next morning brought the deployment briefing in a secure conference room she had never seen before. Major Davidson, her future team leader, was present along with several other special operations personnel who would be part of the mission. Major Davidson was a 15-year veteran of Special Forces operations with deployments to multiple combat zones. He carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who had successfully led teams through extremely challenging situations. Chen, welcome to Task Force Blackbird. Your analytical expertise is critical to our mission success. Davidson activated a wall display showing satellite imagery and intelligence assessments. Our target is a terrorist network that has been planning coordinated attacks against both military and civilian targets. The imagery showed operational areas in mountainous terrain that looked forbidding and complex. Multiple valleys, ridgeline positions, and urban areas created a geographic puzzle that would require sophisticated analysis to understand effectively. Your job will be to analyze their communication patterns, movement activities, and operational preparations in real time. Unlike your previous analytical work, you'll be gathering information directly from the operational environment and providing immediate assessments to support tactical decision-making. Sarah studied the imagery and initial intelligence reports. The network had evolved significantly since her original assessment 8 months earlier. They had expanded their geographic footprint, increased personnel numbers, and developed more sophisticated communication security. What intelligence collection assets will be available? Sarah asked. Davidson smiled. Everything. Communication intercepts, human intelligence sources, unmanned surveillance platforms, and direct observation. Your job is to integrate all sources and provide clear analytical assessments that help us understand what they're planning and when they intend to execute. The briefing continued for 3 hours. covering operational security requirements, communication protocols, threat assessments, and contingency procedures. By the conclusion, Sarah had a comprehensive understanding of the mission and her role within the task force. Master Sergeant Rodriguez, who had been her physical training instructor, approached Sarah after the briefing ended. "Chen, I wanted to wish you success on your deployment. You've earned this opportunity through exceptional dedication and performance. Thank you, Sergeant. The training you provided made this possible." Rodriguez handed her a small package. "A graduation gift from your training cadre. Open it when you're deployed." Sarah packed the unopened gift with her personal equipment, curious about what her instructors had selected, but willing to wait for the appropriate time. 72 hours later, Sarah found herself aboard a military transport aircraft, flying toward her first operational deployment. The aircraft carried 12 special operations personnel, their equipment, and enough supplies for an extended mission in a remote location. Major Davidson took the seat next to her as the aircraft reached cruising altitude. "Chen, how are you feeling about this deployment?" "Ready, sir. Nervous, but ready. The training prepared me for this type of challenge." "Outstanding. I want you to know that your analytical reputation preceded you to this assignment. The intelligence assessments you produced 8 months ago were instrumental in understanding this network initially. Now you'll have the opportunity to see how your analysis translates into operational reality." Sarah appreciated his confidence, but she also understood the weight of responsibility she was accepting. Her analytical accuracy would directly impact the safety and success of 11 other professionals who were trusting her judgment in life and death situations. As the aircraft flew through the night toward their destination, Sarah reviewed the mission files one more time. The terrorist network had grown from a regional threat to an international concern capable of coordinating attacks across multiple countries. Their communication security had improved. Their operational planning had become more sophisticated, and their willingness to accept casualties had increased. Traditional intelligence methods were providing useful information, but not with the speed and specificity needed for effective tactical response. That's why forward-deployed analytical support had become necessary, to bridge the gap between strategic intelligence and tactical requirements. Sarah opened the package Rodriguez had given her. Inside was a small American flag patch with a handwritten note. "For exceptional performance under pressure. Apply your analytical skills with confidence, and trust your training. You've got this." As the transport aircraft continued toward their destination, Sarah felt a combination of excitement and determination that she had never experienced before. The Analyst was about to become something completely new. A forward-deployed intelligence specialist operating in hostile territory where her skills would be tested against real enemies with deadly intentions. Everything she had trained for over the past 6 months was about to be applied in an environment where accuracy wasn't just professionally important. It was literally a matter of life and death for her and the 11 special operations professionals who would depend on her analytical assessments. The aircraft began its descent toward an airfield in a country Sarah had only studied from satellite imagery and intelligence reports. Within hours, she would be gathering intelligence directly from operational sources and providing analytical support in real-time combat conditions. Sarah Chen, formerly known as the Analyst, was about to discover whether her remarkable transformation from desk analyst to operational intelligence specialist would prove successful in the most challenging environment possible. Her pattern recognition abilities, developed through 6 years of analytical work and enhanced through 6 months of intensive training, were about to face their ultimate test. The mission ahead would determine not only the success of Task Force Blackbird's operations, but also whether Sarah's unique combination of analytical expertise and operational capabilities could contribute to preventing terrorist attacks that threatened both military personnel and civilian populations. As the aircraft touched down on the remote airfield, Sarah took a deep breath and prepared to apply everything she had learned in an environment where there would be no second chances for analytical errors. Sarah's first glimpse of forward operating base Sentinel came through the small window of the transport helicopter as they approached the landing zone. The facility was smaller than she had expected. A collection of concrete structures, communication towers, and defensive positions carved into a mountainside valley that provided natural protection from observation. The helicopter touched down in a cloud of dust that temporarily obscured everything around them. Major Davidson led the team off the aircraft, moving quickly toward a reception area where other military personnel waited to brief them on current operational conditions. Sarah carried her equipment pack and analytical gear, feeling the weight of responsibility as much as the physical load. This was no longer training. Every decision she made from this point forward would have real consequences for the mission and the people around her. Within 2 hours of arrival, Sarah was seated in the base operations center, reviewing the latest intelligence reports. The facility was more sophisticated than its exterior appearance suggested, with communication equipment and analytical capabilities that rivaled her previous workplace at Joint Base Andrews. Captain Lisa Morrison, the outgoing intelligence analyst, briefed Sarah on current operational status. Chen, the network has been increasingly active over the past 2 weeks. We're detecting more communication traffic, increased movement of personnel, and what appears to be coordination with previously unaffiliated groups. Sarah studied the intelligence summaries, immediately recognizing patterns she had seen in her original analysis 8 months earlier. But the current activity showed significant evolution in the network's capabilities and intentions. Have you identified specific operational objectives? Sarah asked. That's been the challenge. The communication intercepts suggest major operational planning, but traditional analytical methods aren't providing clear insight into targets or timing. That's why you're here, to apply your pattern recognition abilities directly to current intelligence collection. Captain Morrison introduced Sarah to the various intelligence collection systems available at the forward operating base. Communication intercept equipment that could monitor multiple frequency bands simultaneously, unmanned aerial vehicles with sophisticated sensors, and human intelligence sources who provided regular reports on local activities. Your analytical workstation has access to everything we collect in real time, Morrison explained. Unlike strategic analysis, you'll be working with information as it's gathered, often making assessments based on incomplete data. Sarah activated her workstation and immediately began reviewing the current intelligence picture. The volume of information was substantial, but the quality varied significantly. Communication intercepts provided technical data but required interpretation. Human intelligence reports offered local insight but needed verification. Surveillance imagery showed activities but required analytical context. Major Davidson joined them for Sarah's initial assessment briefing. Chen, what's your preliminary evaluation of current network activities? Sarah had spent 3 hours reviewing available intelligence and applying her pattern recognition training. Sir, the network is definitely in advanced operational planning phases. Communication patterns suggest coordination between at least 7 separate cells, which represents significant expansion from previous assessments. She activated her analytical display and showed communication frequency charts, geographic distribution maps, and timeline analyses she had developed. Most concerning is the coordination pattern. Previous operations involved 2 or 3 cells working independently. Current activity suggests centralized planning with synchronized execution timing. Major Davidson studied her analysis carefully. Timeline estimates? Based on historical patterns and current communication intensity, I assess 48 to 72 hours before operational execution begins. However, I need additional data points to determine specific targets or attack methods. Sarah's assessment proved accurate within 18 hours. Early morning communication intercepts detected coded messages, indicating final preparation phases for what appeared to be coordinated attacks. By afternoon, human intelligence sources reported unusual movement patterns in 3 separate valleys that corresponded to known network operational areas. Sarah spent the next 12 hours applying analytical techniques she had learned during training to process real-time intelligence as it was collected. Unlike her previous analytical work, she didn't have the luxury of time for detailed research or verification. Tactical commanders needed immediate assessments to support operational decisions. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. While reviewing communication intercepts, Sarah identified a recurring code phrase that appeared in transmissions from multiple cells. Traditional cryptographic analysis had failed to decode the phrase, but Sarah recognized it as a timing reference rather than operational instruction. Major Davidson, Sarah called across the operations center. "I think I've identified their execution timeline." Sarah explained her analysis of the recurring phrase, showing how its frequency and context suggested countdown timing rather than operational content. The phrase appears to reference specific time intervals: 12 hours, 6 hours, 3 hours. Based on the most recent transmission, I believe operational execution begins at 0600 hours tomorrow morning. Davidson immediately activated contingency protocols, alerting higher command and repositioning tactical assets based on Sarah's assessment. Within 4 hours, 3 special operations teams were moving toward suspected target areas to intercept the planned attacks. Sarah continued monitoring communication intercepts throughout the night, updating her assessment as additional information became available. By 0400 hours, she had developed a comprehensive picture of the network's operational plan. "Sir," Sarah reported during the pre-dawn briefing, "they're planning simultaneous attacks on 3 separate targets. 2 are infrastructure facilities, a power generation station, and a communication relay site. The third appears to be a civilian target in an urban area." Major Davidson studied her analysis and immediately contacted the tactical teams positioned near the suspected target locations. Sarah's pattern recognition had provided the specific intelligence needed to intercept coordinated attacks that could have resulted in significant casualties and infrastructure damage. At 0547 hours, 13 minutes before Sarah's predicted execution time, the first tactical team reported contact with enemy forces moving toward the power generation facility. Within minutes, all 3 teams were engaged in operations to prevent the planned attacks. Sarah monitored the tactical radio networks, providing real-time analytical support as the situation developed. When one team reported discovering explosive materials significantly larger than expected, Sarah immediately cross-referenced communication intercepts to assess whether the network had additional resources or capabilities. Major, the explosive quantities suggest this operation was larger in scope than previous network activities. I'm seeing communication patterns that indicate possible external support or resource sharing with other terrorist organizations. This assessment prompted additional tactical adjustments as commanders realized they were dealing with a more sophisticated threat than previously understood. Sarah's real-time analysis was providing critical information that traditional intelligence methods would have required days to develop. By 1200 hours, all 3 attacks had been successfully prevented. The tactical teams had captured significant personnel, equipment, and intelligence materials that provided insight into the network's expanded capabilities and future plans. Major Davidson called Sarah into his office for after-action assessment. "Chen, your analytical work directly contributed to preventing 3 terrorist attacks that could have caused extensive casualties and infrastructure damage. Outstanding performance under pressure." Sarah felt pride in her contribution, but also recognized how much the operational environment differed from training exercises. "Sir, the real-time pressure was intense, but the training prepared me well for making analytical assessments with incomplete information. Your pattern recognition abilities proved critical. Traditional intelligence analysis would have identified general threat indicators, but wouldn't have provided the specific timing and targeting information we needed for tactical intervention." Over the next week, Sarah analyzed the intelligence materials captured during the operations. The documents revealed that the network had indeed expanded significantly, developing relationships with terrorist organizations in 3 different countries and acquiring resources that enabled larger, more sophisticated operations. Most concerning was evidence that the prevented attacks were preliminary operations designed to test defensive responses and gather intelligence about security procedures. The network was planning a much larger operational campaign that could involve targets across multiple countries. Sarah developed a comprehensive assessment of the network's evolved capabilities and strategic intentions. Her analysis revealed planning for coordinated international attacks that would represent a significant escalation from previous activities. "Major," Sarah briefed during the weekly intelligence update, "the captured materials indicate we prevented preliminary operations, not their primary objective. The network is planning coordinated attacks involving multiple countries with significantly more sophisticated targeting and execution methods." Davidson studied her analysis with concern. Timeline for these larger operations? Based on planning documents and resource allocation patterns, I estimate 6 to 8 weeks for final preparation. However, if they detect that their preliminary operations were compromised, they may accelerate execution timing. Sarah's assessment proved prescient. Within 72 hours, communication intercepts detected emergency planning sessions and accelerated preparation activities. The network had concluded that their security was compromised and was moving toward immediate execution of their primary operational plan. Sarah, Davidson said, using her first name for the first time during the deployment, your analytical accuracy has been exceptional. I'm recommending you for advanced specialized training that would prepare you for even more challenging assignments. Sarah was intrigued but focused on the immediate threat. What kind of specialized training? Joint Special Operations Command has a program for long-range reconnaissance specialists who operate independently in hostile territory for extended periods. Your analytical skills combined with operational training would make you valuable for missions that require deep insertion into enemy territory. The possibility excited Sarah, but first, she needed to focus on the current situation. The network's accelerated timeline meant that larger, more dangerous attacks were likely imminent. Over the next week, Sarah worked 18-hour days, processing intelligence from multiple sources as tactical teams attempted to locate and disrupt the network's primary operations. Her pattern recognition abilities proved critical for identifying subtle indicators that traditional analysis methods missed. On Tuesday morning, Sarah detected communication patterns that indicated final execution preparations. Unlike the previous attacks, this activity suggested operations planned for multiple countries simultaneously, with targeting that could result in mass casualties. Major, we need to brief higher command immediately, Sarah said, activating her analytical displays. The network is moving toward execution of coordinated international attacks that would represent a completely different level of threat than anything we've seen before. Davidson reviewed her assessment and immediately contacted General Morrison at Joint Special Operations Command. Within 2 hours, Sarah was providing her analysis via secure video conference to senior military and intelligence officials in Washington. General Morrison listened to Sarah's briefing and asked detailed questions about her analytical methods and confidence levels. Chen, based on your assessment, what operational recommendations would you make? Sarah had prepared for this question. Sir, the network's coordination and timing suggest we need immediate international cooperation to prevent simultaneous attacks. Traditional intelligence sharing won't be fast enough. We need real-time analytical coordination between multiple countries. How would you recommend implementing that coordination? Sarah took a deep breath. Deploy forward analytical specialists to each threatened country who can provide real-time assessment and coordination. The network is operating faster than traditional intelligence bureaucracies can respond. General Morrison studied her recommendation for several minutes. Chen, would you be willing to deploy independently to coordinate analytical efforts with allied intelligence services? The assignment would involve operating alone in multiple countries over several weeks. Sarah realized this was the opportunity Davidson had mentioned. Advanced, specialized training applied immediately to the most challenging operational environment possible. The network they had been tracking was about to launch attacks that could affect multiple countries, and traditional intelligence coordination wasn't fast enough to prevent them. Yes, sir. I'm prepared for that assignment. Outstanding. Report to Colonel Martinez for specialized briefing tomorrow morning. You'll deploy within 48 hours to begin coordinating international analytical efforts against this network. As the video conference ended, Sarah realized her transformation from desk analyst to operational intelligence specialist was about to take another dramatic step. She was being asked to operate independently across multiple countries, coordinating intelligence analysis to prevent international terrorist attacks. The analyst who had identified suspicious communication patterns 8 months earlier was about to become a JSOC long-range specialist operating independently in hostile territory. Her pattern recognition abilities, enhanced by 6 months of intensive training and proven during forward deployment, were now being applied to prevent the most sophisticated terrorist operation she had ever encountered. Everything she had learned was about to be tested in an environment where analytical accuracy could prevent attacks affecting thousands of innocent people across multiple countries. The enemy offensive was beginning, and Sarah Chen was about to emerge in a role she had never imagined possible when she first noticed those unusual communication patterns in her secure operations center. Sarah stepped off the commercial airliner in Munich, carrying only a small backpack and a passport, identifying her as a telecommunications consultant for a technology company. Her actual mission equipment had been pre-positioned by JSOC logistics personnel, waiting at secure locations in 3 different European cities. Colonel Martinez's specialized briefing had transformed Sarah's understanding of her new role. She was no longer just an analyst, or even a forward-deployed intelligence specialist. She had become a JSOC long-range reconnaissance specialist, with authority to coordinate international intelligence efforts and direct tactical operations across multiple countries. The terrorist network's planned offensive involved synchronized attacks in Germany, France, and the United Kingdom, with timing designed to maximize psychological impact and media coverage. Traditional intelligence sharing between countries would require days or weeks to coordinate effective response. Sarah's job was to compress that timeline to hours through direct liaison with allied intelligence services. Her first stop was a nondescript office building in downtown Munich, where she met with Hauptmann Klaus Weber from German Federal Intelligence Service. Weber had been briefed on Sarah's assignment but remained skeptical about American coordination of German security operations. "Miss Chen," Weber said in precise English, "we appreciate American intelligence sharing, but German security services are quite capable of managing threats within our territory." Sarah had anticipated this attitude and prepared accordingly. "Captain Weber, I'm not here to manage German operations. I'm here to provide real-time analytical coordination that will help all 3 countries respond faster than the terrorists can execute their plans." She activated a secure laptop containing her most recent analytical assessments. "The network is operating on compressed timelines precisely because they know traditional government coordination is slow. My job is to eliminate that advantage by providing immediate analytical support to all affected countries simultaneously." Sarah showed Weber her analysis of communication intercepts collected over the past week. The network's operational security had improved significantly, but her pattern recognition abilities had identified subtle indicators that revealed their coordination methods and timing references. "They're using a cellular communication structure with 3 separate operational cells," Sarah explained. "Each cell believes they're conducting an independent operation, but the timing and targeting are centrally coordinated through coded references that traditional cryptographic analysis hasn't identified." Weber studied her analysis with growing interest. "How did you identify these coordination references?" "Pattern recognition focused on context rather than content. Instead of trying to decode specific messages, I analyzed communication, frequency, timing patterns, and participant networks to identify coordination indicators." Sarah's approach impressed Weber because it revealed information that German intelligence had missed despite extensive communication intercept capabilities. Her analytical methods were providing insights that complemented rather than duplicated existing intelligence efforts. "What specific intelligence do you need from German sources?" Weber asked. "Real-time access to communication intercepts from the German cell, surveillance reports from your field teams, and immediate notification of any tactical developments. In return, I provide immediate analytical assessments and coordination with the other targeted countries." Weber agreed to establish direct communication links that would give Sarah access to German intelligence collection in real time. More importantly, he authorized her to provide analytical guidance to German tactical teams if time-sensitive situations developed. Sarah's next stop was Paris, where she met with Captain Marie Dubois from the French External Intelligence Service. The French were more receptive to international coordination, having experienced several major terrorist attacks that demonstrated the value of rapid intelligence sharing. "Mademoiselle Chen," Captain Dubois said, "we have been monitoring increased activity from known networks, but haven't identified specific operational plans. Perhaps your analytical methods can help us understand what we're seeing." Sarah reviewed French intelligence reports and immediately recognized patterns consistent with her analysis from German sources. The French cell was using identical timing references and coordination methods, confirming her assessment that all 3 operations were centrally planned and synchronized. "Captain, your surveillance reports indicate the French cell is in final preparation phases," Sarah said. Based on coordination patterns I've identified, execution timing is likely within 48 hours, synchronized with operations in Germany and the United Kingdom. Dubois activated secure communication systems and contacted French tactical teams immediately. Sarah's analysis provided specific intelligence that allowed French security services to accelerate their operational timeline and position resources for immediate response. Sarah's final coordination stop was London, where she met with Major James Harrison from British military intelligence. The British had developed sophisticated analytical capabilities, but were struggling to understand the connection between increased terrorist activity and specific operational threats. "Miss Chen," Major Harrison said, "we're seeing elevated activity levels across multiple networks, but can't determine whether we're looking at coordinated operations or coincidental timing." Sarah spent 4 hours briefing Harrison on her comprehensive analysis of the three-country operation. Her pattern recognition had identified coordination indicators that proved the activities were centrally planned rather than coincidental. "Major, the network has evolved beyond traditional cell structures," Sarah explained. "They're using centralized strategic planning with decentralized tactical execution, which makes each cell appear independent while maintaining operational coordination." Harrison immediately recognized the implications. "If you're correct, we need to coordinate tactical response timing with German and French operations to prevent the network from adapting their plans based on security responses in other countries." Sarah had established communication links with all three countries within 72 hours of arriving in Europe. Her analytical assessments were being shared in real time with intelligence services and tactical teams across 3 different countries, enabling coordinated response that compressed traditional intelligence timelines from weeks to hours. On Thursday morning, communication intercepts from all 3 countries detected final coordination messages indicating immediate operational execution. Sarah was simultaneously monitoring intelligence feeds from German, French, and British sources, while providing real-time analytical assessments to tactical commanders in all 3 countries. "This is it," Sarah reported during a secure conference call with all 3 Allied intelligence services. Final coordination messages were transmitted 30 minutes ago. Based on previous pattern analysis, operational execution will begin within 6 hours. German, French, and British tactical teams moved simultaneously towards suspected target locations based on Sarah's analytical guidance. For the first time, an international terrorist operation was being countered with truly coordinated intelligence and tactical response. Sarah established herself in a secure communication facility in London, where she could monitor all 3 operations simultaneously and provide real-time analytical support as situations developed. Her workstation displayed intelligence feeds from multiple countries, tactical radio networks, and surveillance systems that provided comprehensive situational awareness. At 1,347 hours, the German tactical team reported contact with terrorist operatives moving toward their suspected target. Sarah immediately analyzed communication intercepts to determine whether the contact would cause the network to abort operations in other countries or accelerate their timeline. "All teams, this is Analyst," Sarah transmitted on the coordinated communication network. "German contact is not causing communication spikes from other cells. French and British operations remain on schedule. Continue with planned tactical approach." 15 minutes later, the French team reported discovering explosive materials at their target location, but noted that terrorist personnel had not yet arrived. Sarah analyzed surveillance reports and communication intercepts to assess whether the timing indicated operational delays or security compromise. "French team, communication patterns suggest your target timing is delayed approximately 2 hours from German operations. Maintain surveillance position and coordinate with German tactical developments." Sarah's real-time analytical coordination was enabling tactical commanders in 3 countries to adapt their operations based on developments across the entire network, rather than responding only to local situations. At 1,523 hours, the British team reported unusual communication activity in their area of operations. Sarah immediately correlated the activity with her analysis of network coordination patterns and identified a significant tactical development. "British team, the communication activity indicates the network has activated backup operational procedures," Sarah transmitted. "They've detected compromise of their primary plan and are switching to secondary targets. Recommend immediate expansion of surveillance to alternate locations. I'm transmitting now. Sarah's pattern recognition abilities had identified coordination signals indicating the network was implementing contingency plans that traditional intelligence analysis wouldn't have recognized. Her real-time analytical support was enabling tactical teams to adapt faster than the terrorists could execute their backup procedures. By 1800 hours, coordinated operations in all 3 countries had successfully disrupted the planned attacks. Tactical teams had captured significant personnel and equipment while preventing terrorist operations that could have resulted in hundreds of casualties across 3 different countries. Major Harrison joined Sarah in the London communication facility as the operations concluded. Chen, your analytical coordination was absolutely critical to operational success. Without real-time intelligence sharing, we would have been responding to individual situations rather than coordinating against a unified threat. Sarah felt exhausted but proud of what had been accomplished. Sir, the network's coordination capabilities required international analytical coordination to counter effectively. Traditional intelligence sharing wouldn't have been fast enough. General Morrison joined their conversation via secure video link from Washington. Chen, I've been monitoring the operation through reports from all 3 countries. Your performance has been exceptional, and the results speak for themselves. Thank you, sir. The specialized training prepared me well for this type of coordination role. I'm recommending you for permanent assignment as a JSOC long-range specialist with authority to coordinate international intelligence operations. Are you interested in this career path? Sarah realized this recommendation represented complete transformation from her original role as a desk analyst. She would be operating independently around the world, coordinating intelligence efforts against sophisticated international threats that required immediate analytical response. Yes, sir. This type of work applies my analytical abilities in ways that can prevent significant threats and save lives. I'm committed to this career path. Over the next week, Sarah debriefed with intelligence services in all 3 countries and analyzed captured materials to assess the network's remaining capabilities. The coordinated operations had disrupted their immediate plans, but hadn't eliminated their organizational structure or long-term intentions. Her analysis revealed that the network had developed sophisticated international coordination capabilities that represented evolution beyond traditional terrorist organizational methods. They were applying business management principles to operational planning and developing backup procedures that enabled rapid adaptation to security countermeasures. The threat has evolved, Sarah reported during her final briefing with European intelligence services. Networks are becoming more sophisticated, which requires equally sophisticated analytical response. Real-time international coordination isn't just helpful anymore. It's essential for effective counterterrorism. 3 weeks later, Sarah returned to Joint Base Andrews for specialized equipment training and preparation for her next assignment. The operations center where she had spent 6 years as a desk analyst looked different now. Smaller, somehow, and removed from the operational realities she had experienced over the past 4 months. Colonel Martinez met her in the same briefing room where her transformation had begun 8 months earlier. Chen, your performance during international coordination operations has established new standards for analytical support. You've proven that forward-deployed specialists can provide capabilities that traditional intelligence structures can't match. Ma'am, the operational environment taught me that analytical skills are most effective when applied directly to tactical situations. Working from desk environments provides useful intelligence, but doesn't deliver the immediate response that modern threats require. Sarah had completed a transformation that she couldn't have imagined when she first identified suspicious communication patterns in this same building. The analyst had become a JSOC long-range specialist capable of operating independently in hostile environments and coordinating international intelligence efforts against sophisticated threats. Her reputation now extended beyond Joint Base Andrews to allied intelligence services in multiple countries. Major Harrison from British intelligence had requested her for future coordination operations. Captain Dubois from French intelligence had recommended her for advanced training opportunities with European Special Operations units. Captain Weber from German intelligence had invited her to guest lecture at their analytical training center. Most importantly, Sarah had discovered capabilities within herself that exceeded anything she had previously imagined possible. Her pattern recognition abilities, enhanced by operational training and tested under extreme pressure, had proven effective against enemies who represented serious threats to international security. 6 months later, Sarah stood in a briefing room at Joint Special Operations Command headquarters, presenting analytical assessments to senior military officers planning operations against international terrorist networks. Her colleagues no longer called her the Analyst. That title belonged to her previous life as a desk-bound intelligence specialist. Now they called her by her operational designation, Long-Range Specialist Chen, JSOC Analytical Coordinator authorized to operate independently in hostile territory and direct international intelligence coordination operations against sophisticated asymmetric threats. Sarah had emerged from an enemy offensive as something completely different from what she had been when she first detected the unusual communication patterns that started her transformation. She had become proof that exceptional analytical abilities, combined with proper training and operational experience, could evolve into capabilities that traditional military structures had never anticipated. The quiet analyst who had spent 6 years processing intelligence in a windowless operations center had become an international operations specialist, capable of coordinating intelligence efforts across multiple countries to prevent terrorist attacks that threatened thousands of innocent people. Her transformation was complete, but her operational career was just beginning. Around the world, sophisticated threats were developing that would require exactly the type of analytical coordination capabilities that Sarah had proven she could provide. The analyst had become the specialist that modern asymmetric warfare required, and Sarah Chen was ready for whatever challenges would come next.